I'll see you guys in the dark.
So to start off, I have had 3 stalkers in my life. One started when I was 8. The middle one happened at 16. And the last one happened when I was 22 or so. Well, let's get started. So, in pre-K, when I was 4, I met this girl that lived at the end of the street, about 5 houses down on the other side of me. My mom used to let us play a lot until weird things started happening. She taught me how to smoke cigarettes by lighting them on the exposed eye of the electric stovetop when I was 7, and had terrible asthma. Her mom had just left a pack lying around, so we took one for each of us. I got about a quarter of a puff, didn't even know how to inhale, and had to rush home to use my nebulizer. My parents both smoked in the house, so I knew they probably couldn't smell it. She, quite obviously, had an awful upbringing. Mom did drugs, yada yada. I remember there being a mattress on her floor, which makes me feel bad for her. She also always had bed bugs or lice, or even both. I don't know if she ever showered, and I flat out refused to spend the nights at her house, in all of its gross, dirty glory. She once brought her mom's loaded gun from her house, because my dad was a cop, and she wanted to show it to him. She came to my 5th birthday, brought her older sister, who wasn't invited, and then roughly 2 hours in, let it slip that her sister had strep throat. I get it way too easy, and it's always awful. My bouts with it will last a minimum of 2 months, with me vomiting non-stop the entire time I have it. Also, running 104-degree fever is totally normal for me in that state. I also got scarlet fever once because the strep killed my immune system. To answer your question, yes, I caught it. She would get her older sister and older cousin to jump our backyard fence that was padlocked, and they would swim whenever, until my parents threatened her mom to charge them with trespassing. We asked them multiple times not to do that. Aside from being rude, if something had happened to them, my parents would be liable for it. She even got me to run away for a few hours when my parents weren't home one time. I was 8 at this time as well, and my older sister was supposed to be watching me. She would go up to strangers' front door and ask if they would adopt her because her parents died in a car crash. I called my mom about a mile up the road because I felt horrible and just wanted to go home. Thank you, nice people who live next door to the fire station. Okay, when we were 8, she dressed up as a hooker for Halloween. Yes, an 8-year-old went out for a Halloween trick-or-treating as a hooker. At some point, I just got super creeped out by her. I'm pretty sure it was when we were at a sock hop, again, age 8, and she kept trying to grind on me, and at one point was trying to fully be rubbing on me, and kept moaning right before I would shove her off. But she just kept trying until I found a teacher, and stayed next to them instead of dancing with my friends, all because of her. So, to fast forward to the stalking. When I first stopped talking to her, she would call our house non-stop, every morning, day, night, basically until midnight, and then she would start again at 6 a.m. And if we screened the calls or weren't home, she would fill up the tape on the answering machine with country songs. She'd sing along at the top of her lungs, usually sobbing and saying, "If I can't have you, no one can." I mean, she got really creepy. She would come by the house and leave love notes in my window. My room was at the 2nd floor. She would stop by when she knew I wasn't home, and would try to tell my parents to make me be her friend. She moved out before I turned 9, so this would have had to been around 1993. She would corner me in the alleyways at school, or on the bus, and would just sob, asking why I didn't want to be her friend anymore. Finally, one amazing day when I was 12, she called and gave me the best news. She was moving. My mom handed me the phone, whispered who it was, asked if I wanted to take it and talk. I said sure. She then starts telling me about the new town that she is moving to. Now she has a boyfriend, and how her older sister is in jail. I just simply responded, "Okay, I honestly don't give 2 shits about where you move, whether you are moving or where you are moving to. I couldn't care less if you were moving to China. Could you please kindly just screw off? Goodbye." My parents just stared at me in shock. I had never cursed in front of them ever. Another great part is that I didn't even get in trouble for the few words that I dropped. You think that would be the end, right? Nope, not for her. So when I was 12 and up, I was almost never at home. I was either at a friend's house, at band practice, or at softball practice. One night I came home from one of those, and my mom has this wonky look on her face, and I ask her what's going on. Did someone die? Was there an accident? You know, the normal stuff. We were 15 at this time. At this point, I was worried, and she didn't say anything for the longest time. She then starts to speak very slowly, and is kind of wincing. She finally gets it out. Kay came by. She's pregnant, and she has a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old already. She told us she would really like to see and talk to you sometime if you were up to it. Then hands me a very poorly written phone number. I crumple it in front of my mom, who is now getting her smile back, and throw it away in the kitchen trash. And just for good measure, I fill up the coffee pot and pour it over the note just to make sure that it smears. She tried to do this many, many more times, and thankfully, I was almost always gone, and hated having my parents lie to anyone on my behalf. Fast forward a couple of years, and I moved to a small town at the base of the Appalachian Mountains, about an hour north of Atlanta. I moved in 2003, and never had any issues, until 2010. I was driving a bus that I could take people around inside our country for a small price, as long as they didn't request to leave the country while on the bus. Anyways, I was picking up kids from one of our elementary schools and would take them over to the Boys and Girls Club. I get there and open the doors, and there is this heavy-set redhead that looks super familiar. I overhear a bit of the conversation. Yeah, a crapload of the community service. That's the only reason I'm here helping. It took me about 3 weeks of seeing her every day to finally click with me. It was Kay. I know this isn't a surprise to you guys, because you aren't stupid. So I hope it isn't that cringy for you. So, now since I know her name and know what she looks like, I go home and check out why she was arrested. Apparently, before Christmas one year, her and her dumbass older sister decided to go through a ton of physical mail, keeping all the checks, cash, gift cards, etc. They obviously got caught doing this, and they also had unregistered firearms and a huge amount of drug convictions and charges that were still pending. Anyways, I show her and her sister's mugshot to my hubby and even send them to my mom over text. I knew she would get a kick out of them. Go forward about 12 years more. Hubby, kids, and I are at our favorite Mexican place. We are sitting in our favorite booth, in a little alcove that has maybe 6 full booths, and about 5 tables on the other side of the middle of the walkway. They usually will put you there if you ask, especially to stay away from noisy kids, or keep your noisy kids away from everyone else. Because of this, it is the last place to fill up. So I'm sitting next to my hubby, inhaling some chorizo street tacos, when I hear her voice, directly behind me. I eavesdrop on the conversation, because I recognize the voice. She was higher than a damn plane. I'm honestly not sure how she didn't. It wasn't exactly a surprise to see her like that, especially since she had all the meth and coke charges against her. She had come in with her boyfriend, and they sat there while I was stuffing my face with yummy goodness. I never got up to say hi. I don't want her to know I'm living up here, and even wait to use the bathroom at our house, even though I felt like I was about to piss myself. I made it, though. So about 2 months after that, I was talking to one of my clients about the crazy twat because she was going through a divorce, and the husband was going nutty shit on her. Come to find out, Kay is really good friends with this girl. No, Kay has never a client, so it wasn't against HIPAA to talk about her, use her name, etc. Client has been talking about her. She has an awful reputation, is known for stealing to get drug money, not taking care of her home or her kids. Basic stuff that she just didn't feel like doing. She has 5 kids from 5 different baby daddies, starting with getting pregnant at 12. 12? She had her first baby at the age of 13 and had one every 2 years after, and had lost all of them to the foster care system. At least it shows some people can't just hang on long enough to keep their kids, which is the saddest thing of all. P.S. She still messages me or my parents and have showed up uninvited. I'm really hoping that Kay never finds out where I'm living. My second stalker we'll name E. E and I met through my husband's best friend, T, who was dating her at the time. At first, she was okay. A little immature, and about 4 years younger than us. She did have her hooks far into my hubby's friend, though. He ended up not hanging out with us as much because he was always with her, and she was immature enough to annoy us if we were around her in large doses. About 3 years into them dating, I got a little suspicious of her because she got my best friend, Kitty, who was married to my husband's cousin, super drunk at my friend's birthday party. And then she seemed to disappear for a few hours while I was holding back Kitty's hair for her while she was meeting back up with all the alcohol for at least 3.5 hours or so. I had noticed E's absence along with A's absence. If your wife is throwing up tons of alcohol, you'd think that you would be there for her. And this is when I started paying a bit more attention and started to try and get closer to E to see if she would tell me if something was going on. At the time, my hubby and I were huge Gears of War fans, and played all the time, usually with Kitty, A, and a few other regulars. One day, E texts me, letting me know that she got a 360, and bought Gears of War. So that night, she got online and played with our group. Another side note, at this time, my husband worked for a company as a traveling electrician, so he would be gone for 6 weeks. Come home for 3 days over a weekend, and then go back out to his job site for another 6 weeks. Occasionally, his foreman would negotiate an extra weekend or two, and hubby would come home and surprise me. This is important to remember. We started playing a lot more. E, A, Kitty, and a few other friends when my husband was working out of state. I thought it was absolutely hilarious to pick on her while playing, so I would just pretend I had a lot of accidents or said something along the lines of, "Oh shit, I'm so sorry. I thought you were, insert name." Yes, I know I was a bitch, but I really didn't like or trust her very much. One night, we started playing together, and we were talking over the headsets in a party, and my husband called out 9. We had been in the party 10 minutes, because it took longer than usual to wrangle up my 4-month-old and 2-year-old into bed. So she was already pissed that I didn't get on at 8. I told her he was calling, and I was going to mute myself, but keep playing. I had been talking to him for about 10 minutes. Literally had not stopped playing for even a second or two. And she comes over the mic with this super bitchy tone. Says, "Look, Butterfly, if you aren't going to play the game and talk to me, we just shouldn't even be playing." This really pissed me off. So in return, "Look here, you selfish little bitch. I haven't seen my husband in 5 weeks, and I miss him. This is literally the only time I will get to talk to him today. So why don't you let me know when you've pulled that giant fucking stick out of your spoiled ass?" I then immediately shut down the party, shut down the game lobby, removed her from my friends list, and blocked her on the Xbox so she couldn't even bring up my gamer tag. About 20 minutes go by, and she texts me, "Look, I'm sorry I said that. I get that you haven't seen him, so just jump back on after you get off the phone." Yeah, right. The only reason I was playing with her was so that I could see if she would tell me if she was fucking my best friend's husband or not. So I don't reply. 10 minutes later, "Look, I'm seriously sorry. You could at least not be a bitch and text me back." I need to not be a bitch? What is she on? Oh, go back to talking to my husband, who by now has heard all about it and is trying to calm me down so I don't wake up my girls and have an awful night ahead of me. We talk for another 45 minutes or so, and he gets off the phone to go to sleep since they have to be at the site at 6 a.m. I stayed up a little later, playing Gears of War with my friends I actually like, and told them what happened so that I could vent about it. We stayed online until about midnight, so I got up to start turning everything off as I was going to bed. One thing about our house is that I love to have our main door open, just a screen door shut so that I can look outside onto our little cul-de-sac, of which we lived in the very middle, and down in a hole. We had one neighbor on each side. On the right, my husband's mom and stepdad, and the parents on another of his best friends on the left. I put that down so you guys could understand that we knew the two other couples really well. So we knew everyone on our street, even on the straightaway part of our cul-de-sac. There were no other houses until you turned off of our street. In the very middle of our one-lane road was a pine island, a small teardrop-shaped piece of land with 4 or 5 pine trees that we sometimes used for extra parking. As I'm going to shut, lock, and bolt our front door, I see a car in the middle of the pine island and immediately recognize it as E's vehicle. I cave in and called her and asked her, "What do you think that you're doing? You need to leave now." She just laughs like crazy. I've snapped and have a gun kind of laugh. She responds with, "Public property," and just hangs up. It's technically true that it is owned by the city and county, but all 3 property lines actually coverage into the Pine Island, so only an area about 3 feet by 3 feet is owned by the city or county. So she was also technically trespassing on all 3 parts of our properties. I called 911 and let them know that E and I had argued and exactly where she was parked. They asked how long she had been there, so I told them that I didn't know, but I last talked to her about 9:30, and she was at her house then, so it was sometime after that when she arrived. But I didn't see her arrive either, which means she had her headlights off. Otherwise, I would have seen her pull in since the door is right in front of the island and our driveway, and at the very least, I could have seen her headlights on the walls. If she had the headlights on, though, she would have blinded me since the recliner I sat in was exactly against the back wall directly in front of the door. So I explained all this to the dispatcher, and she asked if E was approaching me, and I tell her no, she's just sitting in her car. She asked if she had tried to contact me by phone, and I told her, again, how I called her last and what we said. The dispatcher says, "Well, right now she technically is on public property, hasn't called or approached you, so there isn't anything really we can do. If she threatens you, just call us back and let us know." We hang up, and I'm just thinking, great. Now I have a crazy pants staring at my house, and my husband is like 9 states away and won't be back for at least a week. I go ahead upstairs and get ready for bed, taking out my contacts, pulling my phone on the charger, shower, change, and go back downstairs. Now it's about 1:30 a.m., and she is still sitting there. I not only deadbolt the front door, but I lock the screen, pull the slide bolt, and lock the doorknob. I also go and pull the slide bolts over the door to the garage basement and the back door, since our slide bolts can only be opened from the inside. And now I'm super paranoid. Something that really sucks about being paranoid, it makes insomnia so much worse. I probably went downstairs every 30 minutes to see if she was there. Spoiler, she was. Since my kids were young, I thankfully didn't have to worry about them going to school yet, or anything else. And because of my husband always being gone, I didn't have to work either. I kept checking on to see if she was there or not, about every hour or so, whether I fell asleep or not. She ended up staying in her car, never moving to go somewhere to pee or eat for like 9 days, until my husband came home. Therefore, I didn't leave my house for 9 days. I thankfully had enough groceries to last me and my girls. Especially one was still on formula, and I even ordered a small pizza every day just to bug her, hoping that if I made her hungry enough, she would leave to go to eat. So my husband gets home, walks up to her window, and threatens her. E then has the nerve to call the cops on my husband. 2 of our city's finest come out and start getting statements from all of us. I explain and show pictures that I took each day and night, along with screen caps to show day and time, so they can see how long she has been sitting there, staring at my house. I explain that I wasn't going to leave my home with my 2 young children, since she hasn't even left to go to the bathroom or eat. By the way, her car was filled with bottles, huge cups, and towels that she has been using as her toilet, and she had 4 unopened 12-packs of drinks, 2 or 3 backpacks still pretty full with food, and 1 bag that had a coffee cup warmer, which looked like she was using it to cook canned food. and a damn power converter plugged into her cigarette lighter port that even gave her 2 fucking electrical outlets. Since it looked like she was planning to still stake out my house for quite a while, the cops went ahead and told her if she contacted me again, or came through the cul-de-sac, that I could file harassment and trespassing charges. And they gave her a verbal warning and escorted her out of our neighborhood. She then started messaging me on Facebook, since I didn't mention digital communication. And she kept using friends' accounts to send me more once I would block one. I had each message printed out to show the cops, but since she never typed out, "Hey butterfly, it's me, E," they couldn't be sure it was her. She would still drive around on our street at least once a day for about 3 months, and I would catch her following my car when I drove around town, and me when I went into the stores or restaurants. It finally stopped when E was caught in a compromising position in a car with A, Kitty's husband, my hubby's cousin, by T, E's boyfriend. Kitty was able to go back through A's online account and found out that they only had been together for almost 2 years at this point. A and Kitty divorced. T dropped E like a hot rock and refused to talk to her, period. And E continued to try and stalk me, badly, for another 2 years, and ended up in jail for stealing over 1,000 pain meds from her pharmacy job. This one was definitely the most intense stalker I have had, and of course, he was always the one I was closest to. We will call him BC for the length, or I may switch to the asshole, LOL. BC was my first love. We started dating the second semester of 8th grade, and both had the infatuation thing going on for the first year or so of our relationship. But by the end of the 9th grade, I was over him being an asshole. He would physically abuse me, verbally abuse me, break up with me if I couldn't remember something he told me, just really beat me down. I finally got the nerve to break up with him by the end of the 10th grade. They had built a new high school, which I was district for, and he was still going to the original. So, since I couldn't have to see him every day, I figured it would be a clean break. I was wrong. I broke up with him the first week of summer break. The biggest thing I did not do is switch jobs. I had only had mine for a few months, and I loved it. But unfortunately, because of my ridiculous, bad planning, I worked right outside of his neighborhood. The shopping center was a large L shape, with my Publix being on the tiny part, with 2 or 3 shops leading into the corner. Then the longer piece had more shops, including a pizza place. Fast forward about 2 weeks, and I'm working, not thinking about anything in particular, when he comes in. I knew this would happen because of the location, but didn't think anything about it. It's worth it to point out that our schedule for the day was on a table right before you got to the customer service desk, so everyone who was on that day was on it, including when our breaks were. I get relieved at my 4-hour point, and got to take my hour break in the break room, and had just gotten out my book, and my food to eat, when he comes walking in like he owned the place. There were 2 other employees in there with me, D and K. Both only had a year or 2 older on me. I literally just ignored him after telling him to leave, and that he wasn't supposed to be back here, and told K to go get the store manager since he wasn't leaving, and was obviously not supposed to be back there. This is when he starts crying, threatening to end himself, snotting all over me, and kept trying to grab my hand and hold it. I stayed firm, told him he had to leave, and also said that if he felt like hurting himself, maybe he should have treated me better. Bitch move, I know, but I was royally pissed. It's at this point that he grabs my wrist, so D starts telling him to let me go, and he just tightens his grip on me. About this time, one of the stalkers, who was about 40 and a super cool dad-like figure to me, and W, just walks up to BC, grabs him by the throat, pushes him against the wall, and tells him to leave me the fuck alone. At this point, store manager and assistant store manager come in and go escort him out, accompanied by the local PD, and is banned from the store. I am also assigned a buddy, for lack of the better word, which was always MP, He was an Army MP, or W, depending on who was working, because I was always on shift with one, if not both of them, and they were the biggest dude employees we had. This is when shit got crazy. I usually worked the closing shift during the summer, because I was the fastest cashier, and didn't mind all the extra work, and was strong as a female, although I was super tiny, to put all the summer furniture and such from outside. About 3 or 4 days after BC was banned, I was outside pulling everything in the lobby for the night, when I saw BC standing outside of the pizza place, just watching me. It freaked me out, so I went in and told my manager, and when it was time to go, MP walks me out. There is a note on my car, explaining that BC has been watching me, and he even got a job at the pizza place, so he could feel like we were ending our nights together. No! I was getting really angry. I just screamed at him that he's going to call the cops if he doesn't leave immediately, and BC runs off. This goes on the entire summer. The notes, condoms on my car, lunch meat on the windows, and paint. I would rip off whatever he would put on there. He would come in to get crap for his work after volunteering, and then be kicked out as soon as he walked in the doors. Called my house all the time, and ended up with the TPO against his ass. At this point, right when school is starting back, MP and I end up dating. Then, September 11th happens, and MP is activated. I'm upset, and BC is literally the only person I can think of to call, because he had freaked out all of my friends, and they wouldn't talk to me. This, of course, upsets him, and the vandalism to my car gets worse, and we start noticing a vehicle pass by our house at least 20 times an afternoon if I'm at home. MP comes back home for about 3 weeks before he ends up being deployed to FT, Venning. We stayed together throughout the next year, with nothing other than what I had grown accustomed to happening. Then, at the beginning of my senior year on September 11th, 2002, I'd mess up my knee, and I mean hardcore fuck it up. Being the ever so gracious person I am, fell out of the shower and managed to rip apart every single muscle in my leg. Had a full around leg patella dislocation, and ripped the muscle from the long bones. At this point, we know it's going to be a while before I can drive, and my parents give me my car to my sister. So, everything kind of calms down for a few months. MP and I also end things, because he is going to Iraq, and thinks I'm not mature. Then, almost in December, my parents get me a new car. A teeny tiny little Kia Rio, like a burnt cinnamon color, which means dark orange in car speak. Either way, a very noticeable, memorial car because it is very ugly. It was a good little car though. This is when he decides to step everything up, ranging from soda all over the paint to smashing in my back windshield. My only saving grace from all the attacks was my moving an hour away to where I live right now after I graduated. I do still get Facebook messages from him and a bunch of our mutual friends almost 20 years later, and I've been married for 15 of those, so I don't know what his plan or thinking was there. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.